Well, I've been warning about this, it's triumvirate, but it's really more, of communist China, fascistic Russia, and the Islamo-Nazi regime in Tehran. And you can add North Korea there too. But in terms of the active axis of evil, you have those three regimes. And Iran and China, and Iran and Russia have gotten closer and closer and closer. This is a huge problem for the United States, because we have a so-called commander-in-chief who is extraordinarily weak. And so this is a huge problem for Israel and a huge problem for the moderate Gulf Arab states. It just is. And they don't have any fear now, except for Israel. They fear Israel, but they don't have any fear that the United States will use direct military power against them, that is Iran. I don't think China fears it, quite frankly. I think they fear Trump. But what's happening now is that Iran is providing oil to China. Russia's providing oil to China. China's providing technology to both countries. And China now has some kind of a defense pact with Iran. And now Russia, it's been recently announced, Putin is going into the Middle East to have a sort of a conference with Erdogan of Turkey and the Islamo-Nazi who runs Iran. That is troubling, Turkey and Iran. Erdogan hates Israel, hates the Jews, is constantly pushing for more and more terrorist activity against Israel with the Palestinians. So you've got this quagmire here, or this mix going on in the Middle East, and the United States' position, as far as I'm concerned, is convoluted. Through the back door, it appears that Biden wants to split Jerusalem, the capital of Israel, with the Palestinians. It seems like he's going back to the old practices. The Abraham Accords had been adopted under Trump and Netanyahu, but you have a very weak leader in Israel now, Lapid, who really doesn't even have a majority of support. He's a leftist. They're all trying to block Netanyahu, who is the Churchill of Israel, and in many ways the world when it comes to the Middle East. So all this is playing out right now. And then there's a report that just came out that Iran is going to provide Russia with these high-tech drones, these weaponized drones that can hit specific targets, and going to provide them to Russia that doesn't have them. Not this advanced. Remember, they stole the technology from us after one or two of these drones crashed. And Iran's going to give them to their client, to their friend, Putin, who's now going to use them against the Ukrainians. This is why the Putinoids in this country who say, what is it any of our business? Our enemies love to hear that, because they are working, they are collaborating, and they are focused on us ultimately. Not Ukraine, not Taiwan, not even Israel. They are focused on us. Anyway, let's take a listen to this. The drones where Iran is getting ready to help Russia. Go.
We turn to major developments in the war in Ukraine. Late today, the White House now warning it believes Iran is now getting ready to help Russia. What Iran is expected to send to help the Russians fight the Ukrainians. Meantime, the images tonight, the civilian death toll rising from Russia's missile strikes on that massive apartment building in the east. And tonight, the story of the survivor pulled out after more than 30 hours in that rubble. Our foreign correspondent James Longman from inside Ukraine again tonight.
Tonight, the White House says it believes Iran is ready to provide hundreds of unmanned aerial vehicles, including armed drones, to Russia and give their fighters training to use them in the war in Ukraine.
Our information indicates that the Iranian government is preparing to provide Russia with up to several hundred UAVs, including weapons-capable UAVs, on an expedited timeline.
White House officials say it's not clear if Iran has delivered any of these drones to Russia yet, but says the training could begin before the end of this month. All this as Russia presses its attacks in eastern Ukraine. And tonight, after more than 30 hours under the rubble of a Russian strike, somehow this man was brought out alive. 33 people are now known to have died in this attack on an apartment block in eastern Ukraine. The moment the missile hit, caught in this video circulating online. The building almost obliterated, and more than 20 people are still thought trapped. Valery prays outside for his sister and 9-year-old nephew. Now I'm waiting for a miracle, he says. Russian strikes raining down across the country as their troops push further into Donetsk. That's the second of the two provinces that make up the Donbass region of the east. And Moscow has now started fast-tracking Russian passports for Ukrainians in areas that they occupy. Ukraine has condemned that as another act of Russification. That is the effort to claim land permanently.
It's really, really bad, America. And I'm just thankful that the vast majority of Americans do support Ukraine in this effort, despite the propagandists. Now, keep something in mind about Iran. Iran's going to provide them with these drones. This is what Israel has to face. These drones that the Iranians have, that Hezbollah has, that Hamas has, and so forth. And Israel has no space between them and the Gaza Strip and southern Lebanon. And even with Iran, it's not ultra far away, it's close enough. There's no ocean that divides them. So this is what they have to look forward to. I know the Israelis are practicing just in case for all-out war against Iran. But Israel's not going to be able to sit around and wait. The 67 war, they couldn't sit around and wait. They saw that there was an economic effort to destroy them, and militaries had colluded and were building, led by Nasser in Egypt, with Jordan, with Saudi Arabia, with other countries, to attack Israel, and Israel attacked first during the 1967 war. If Israel believes that Iran has the nukes and that they're in a position to use them, they can't sit around and wait. The difference this time is I don't think we'll have their backs. I think Trump would have. I think the Bushes would have. I think Reagan certainly would have. Even Clinton, I think, would have. I don't think Obama would have, and I don't think Biden will. Time will tell. But there's an awful lot going on out there, whether it's Ukraine, Iran, Communist China with Taiwan. All the pieces are moving. And we don't talk about this enough in this country. We don't have leadership in this country to really focus the American people on this. And we don't have a Congress that's really focused on this. We should be really muscling up. I had General Petraeus on my Fox show. I didn't think he was that powerful, to be perfectly honest with you, but he was a great general, and I wasn't one to be rude, but I wanted you to hear what he had to say. And he said what he said, and some of it was troubling to me. Yes, we're spending $40 billion more than Biden proposed on defense. Now think about that. Biden sees what's going on all over the world, and he's undercutting the military, but we're going to spend $40 billion more. That doesn't mean anything. What are we spending it on? What are we doing? I mean, it's not the number that matters. It's are we going to be able to compete and confront? China now has a real powerful Navy, and it's bigger than ours. China now has iron-fisted control over the South China Sea. This is a big problem. China's now building aircraft carriers. China's building all kinds of satellite systems. China has the most advanced hypersonic weapons on the face of the earth, followed by Russia, not followed by us. We can't get one of those missiles off the ground yet. We've had two that have failed. Why? Because Obama didn't want to compete. And so now we're behind. It's like the Sputnik. All of a sudden we look around and there's the Soviet Union. They just shot a rocket into space. Well, we've known about China and their hypersonic activity. They stole a lot of the technology from us, but we hadn't been producing anything. And so now we're playing catch up. So that now costs more money, doesn't it?
Want to see more? Sign up for Levin TV.